Hello, my name is Corey Driggs, and this week's module is on social influence, part 2. Our introduction to social influence. Social influence, it basically is the way people are affected by real and imagined pressures of others. In our reading, we saw in our text the continuum of social influence. On that continuum, you have actions that will be yielding to influence, and those include obedience, compliance, and conformity. And then resistance to that influence is defiance, assertiveness, and independence. Social influence, humans are subject to all of the influence around them. We're impacted by media and people and groups and our churches we belong to, our classmates, our co-workers. All of these influences impact us. We're subject to reflex-like influences. If someone yawns, we tend to yawn. If someone laughs, we tend to laugh. We even cringe when someone else gets hurt. Let's go a little bit deeper. Let's talk about conformity. Conformity is the tendency of people to change their perceptions or opinions and behavior in ways that are consistent with the group norm. Those groups that affect us with social influence, those groups that we belong to, whether it's, again, church, co-workers, peer groups, whatever the group is, conformity is the tendency to change and match the overwhelming opinion of that group or behavior of that group. Prone in 2007 did a study and found that most people do not see themselves as conformists, but they believe or perceive that others conform. So a lot of times we conform and we don't even realize it. A good example is the cell phone. Walk into a mall, walk into a store, a school, everybody's got one. But 10, 15 short years ago, not everybody carried one. Social conformity. Why do people conform? There's a human need to be correct, or a fear of being in an out group, maybe. The different types of conformity. Private conformity. This is the conformity that involves deep self-thought. The change of beliefs that occur when a person privately accepts the position taken by others. There's consideration there. There's thought in that process. Public conformity is when you're caught in the group and you're called out, and you conform in the moment simply to remove yourself from the fear of ostracism or the fear of being considered in an out group or not part of that group. But it's not done in a serious manner. It's superficial. Moscovici's theory. This theory is the majority. The majority are powerful by virtue of sheer numbers, whereas nonconformists derive their power from the style of their behavior. The majority, the group, gets its power by the number in the group, by the mass. A nonconformist who's going to stand out in that group or rebel against the group behavior, they gain that energy and their power through their behavior style of going against the flow. The next one is compliance. Compliance is the change in behavior that is elicited by direct request. It is directed by another to the person or to the target. The norm of reciprocity is the idea that we tend to treat others as they have treated us. This norm contributes to the predictability and fairness of social interactions, but it also can be used to trap us into acts of compliance if we're not careful. Obedience is behavior change by command or authority. A parent, commands or gives authority to a child for obedience. The laws around us demand obedience. Blind obedience can be devastating, as evidence in World War II and the Nazi regime. Blind obedience in research testing and following commands that go against our thought and our moral beliefs. Blind obedience can be very dangerous. Social impact theory states that social influence of any kind, the total impact of others on a target person, is a function of the other person's strength. Next, what is a group? What are these groups that influence us, that drive how we think and how we perceive? A group is a set of individuals who interact over time and have shared fate, goals, or identity. When I instruct team building exercises at the company I work for, I often tell that team that the group is always kind of shifting and changing, even if there's not a new addition of an individual, but that group alters almost every time they meet. There's different dynamics, there's different influences. The week is different, the day is different, the meeting is different. So a group is changing, almost constant. Culture and cohesiveness. A group cohesiveness, can be affected in different ways as function of culture differences. When there's cultural differences within the group dynamic, that cohesiveness can be dependent on those dynamics. Collective effort model. This is a theory that individuals will exert effort on a collective task to the degree that they think their individual effort will be important, relevant, and meaningful for achieving outcomes that they value. So when they're in the group and they're interacting, they will contribute to the degree of a desired outcome in the group. Once that value is diminished, or that issue or outcome is not relevant, their contribution is reduced. De-individuation, the loss of a person's sense of individuality and the reduction of normal constraints against deviant behavior. Process gain, this is the increase in the group's performance so that the group outperforms the individuals who make up the group. It's the combined talent of the group. It's the combined energy of the group. Brainstorming is a technique that attempts to increase the productivity and creative ideas of the group. And it encourages members to speak freely without criticizing their own or others' contributions. It's kind of an unfocused, hey, let's come up with a new idea, let's start just throwing it out there until something sticks to the wall. Very effective way of coming up with a new idea or concept. Group polarization. See, exaggeration of initial tendencies in the thinking of a group member through group discussion. Groupthink is when the group agrees to agree. Groupthink is when instead of there being conversation with conflict or challenge, it's let's just agree so we can get out of here. Let's agree to check it off the list. And there's no real discussion that comes out of that. Everybody's just agreeing to seek concurrence or cooperation. This week, social influence, part 2 was our topic, and how we are affected through social influence, the different groups that we're involved in. So in our questions this week, question 1 I pose: as a Christian, social influence and conformity can go against what we believe. Give me an example from the Bible where social influence is evident, and support it with our text reading from the week. And then question 2, do you recognize ways as a Christian you are socially influencing others in your day through your Christian behavior? And give some examples of that, of how you might go about that. Thank you for this week's lesson and the opportunity to present.